Namaste and welcome to Wisdom Workshop with Professor Subhash Kak. And we are talking about the deeper spiritual, or should I say from the consciousness perspective, meaning or significance or underlying, implication of the United States at 250 years. So in the second of our 3 episodes on this topic, Subhashi, I want to take you down the memory lane. You were probably 32 or so when you came and settled down, or I guess you had a job. You took up a professorship here. Am I right? At
Right.
a very young age. So can you tell us how things were then in the was it the 70s?
79 is when I came here. I was hired as a professor by Louisiana State University. And Louisiana, as you know, is a part of Deep South. And when we came here, we were sort of confronted with the residue of what had been a festering issue in the US related to race and the outsiders, the old elite and so on. While we had great time and people were very hospitable, but we saw America change right before our eyes. At that time, in the late 70s, there were a lot of Iranian students in American universities, but after the overthrow of the Shah, that changed, and then Indian students came in because America needed a lot of young people, and that process began in 1974 or so. After 1974, the population of the whites in America started to decline. What had happened in late 50s was the birth control pill. And so for the white population of the US, the fertility rate dropped below 2.1 in 1974. So this is something that people don't normally understand. Why is it? Was it only the contest between the US and the Soviet Union for the space which made the US open up and let immigrants or scientists and engineers from India and other nations come in? It was really something fundamental happening to the demographics as an important factor. So we saw that happen, and then Indians, when I first came in 1977, I remember spending an afternoon with the ambassador in Washington, D.C., Mr. T.N. Kaul, who happened to be a Kashmiri as well. And he mentioned how few Indians were there in the entire U.S. at that time. But of course, now everything is changed. When I came in, there are not that many Indians that you saw at the higher echelons of leadership in universities and companies. But in the last 40 odd years, everything has changed. Now Indians sit at the highest levels. They lead some of the most powerful corporations. They are presidents of universities. They're everywhere in every walk of life. And they have done that paradoxically because of what America offered by way of an inspirational call to equality, which Indians heard back in India, even though India was also speaking about equality, but in reality, India got sidetracked right by its constitution into a system of quotas, because the constitution itself started with a 20 odd % for SC, ST, and then it's been a downward slope right from that point on. So we saw that hypocrisy within the Indian system, where on the one hand we are talking of equality, on the other hand we are pushing these quotas further and further, and people who were devoted to excellence had no place to go but to the US. And so people came in, and if I may also say that process may accelerate with the quota reservation system in India hardening further by the day. More and more people from the general class, the so-called general class, will have no place to go but to the US and to other Western countries like Australia and New Zealand and perhaps Europe. So it's been a great deal of change that I've witnessed while I've been here. But I also remain connected to India in many different ways, not only in my research and my study of their texts and so on, but also to policy making. And I've been writing for Indian newspapers and magazines, and I've been a part of decision making, not decision making, that won't be the right word, of advisory systems in place within the Indian government.
Oh, yes, you are a Padma Shri as well as a member of the Prime Minister's Scientific Advisory Committee. So definitely it is a bi-directional flow. And as you said, Indians seem to have broken every glass ceiling. We've had a vice presidential, second lady, if you want to call it, of Indian origin, J.D. Vance's wife, Usha Vance. We had a presidential candidate who had Indian origins, Kamala Harris. We've got the director of FBI. We've had people running for president, Vivek Ramaswamy on the Republican side as well, before he dropped out. So, and Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Mr. Krishnan and Mr. Malhotra of, one of the hyperscalers today, Micron and so forth. All this is well known, Mr. Khosla. So it seems to me that, of course, it's a two-way street again, because Indians are considered a model minority. They're very, very law-abiding. They pay their taxes. They're supposed to be one of the wealthiest minorities. On the other hand, no other country has embraced them, has given them so much as America has. And in fact, so this comes back to the question I was asking, that any society which offers those conditions for human flourishing, is very important in terms of the future of humanity, because it is, even like planetary futures are hatched, the nurseries, as it were, are very special places, like our ashrams of the rishis, where, the best and the brightest were nurtured so that that was the crucible of the world, brave new world, so to speak. So, I think that as Indians, we have to be very grateful for whatever we've received in this country, whether we are visiting or I got my education here. I'm very, very grateful, because I learned about India actually in this country, and I got an assistantship, I had a fellowship. I was only 19, and I submitted at 24, a little after you, but the system here was very rigorous. I had to do so much coursework, and I had the special field exam, and I had the all kinds of exams to clear before I was even allowed into the PhD program, and I learned so much. So what I'm trying to say is that without spending a penny, to get some unknown Indian from somewhere, and I got admitted to 3 or 4 schools, not just one. There's something special about this place, as it were. And even today, Subhashi, I don't know what you think, but some of the best work in consciousness studies, in yoga, in Vedanta, in Trika, you name it, it's happening here. It's not happening in India. So that's why I'm saying that, do you think that creating the material conditions for human flourishing has something to do with this question we are asking about the deeper significance of what the US stands for? Because unless there are places like this, and there are other countries too, let's face it, but at least when it comes to innovation, the US seems to be leaps and bounds ahead of Europe, which is it's in a kind of stagflation, whatever environment. China is top-down, authoritarian. India, you already said, quota everywhere, and and so forth. And the Middle East, the entire Islamic world is still trapped, as it were, in that that ideology. So there are very few places where you can actually explore and flourish. And even here, they're, as it were, closing it down. So what do you think about, yeah?
Okay, well, if I were to go back and ask, why is it that Indians have become so successful? Because the Indian way of looking at reality is universal. We, in India, the focus is, they progress of everybody. पूरे विश्व का कल्याण हो, for example, and I think that attitude is what Indians brought to the table in various organizations and universities within the US, that Indians were not doing it for other Indians. They were doing it for the nation they were a part of, namely the United States of America and the world. The Indian view is a universal view. And I think this is where Indians have been a breath of fresh air to Americans themselves. Because when we first came in the 1970s, Americans were also perhaps doubtful. Hey, this is a new group coming in. Would they want to create their own enclaves here? But not really. Indians are truly, in my view, while they may socialize, with others who speak their own language or whatever else, but they are truly universal. And I think that is a message that has gone out from the Indian community to other groups as well, that look, we are all the same. And that is the very heart of Vedanta as well. Every human being, in fact, all life is sacred, and that consciousness within the monkey and the cow and the dog is the same as the consciousness within, because it's transcendent. It's not a property of the material body, but of course it's like a light which illuminates the contents of my mind, your mind, an animal's mind. So what we are trying to do, what Vedanta, this spirituality, which has been transformative in the US as well. With the coming of the Indians in the 1970s, there's also the New Age movement, which was the popularization of the ideas of yoga, etc. And meanwhile, what has happened in America is, if before the coming of the Indians in the 1970s or 60s, America was really a sectarian region, a region with sectarian religion being the dominant ideology. Now, I think the dominant ideology of America and of most of the free world is yoga. Yoga as a universalist view of a approach to connecting oneself to divinity. And that divinity is the one for everybody. The word divinity meaning light, that light within us, which you can also call the spirit. So I think these ideas have changed. America and perhaps Indians have played a much greater role than we are consciously aware of. And we see that also as something that happened right in the founding of America. You go back to the first president. In fact, right up till the 6th or 7th presidents, they were all universalists. Their view of Christianity was a kind of a universalist view, which will be perfectly consistent with Sanatana Dharma. The first 6 presidents, Christianity, the overt introduction of Christianity into American political life perhaps goes to Jimmy Carter, and then, Bill Clinton, because of his personal life. You had to go further out and show that he was this wonderful man. Which he might be as an individual. I'm not judging anybody here. So religion came into America more recently, but I think it's more superficial. This bringing in of religion is more superficial because in the meanwhile, America's spirit has changed. And I think Sanatana Dharma, and I'm not saying it in a gloating manner, Sanatana Dharma is a universalist thing. It belongs to everybody. Sanatana Dharma also springs from science. It springs from all open inquiry. In the social sciences also, you look at language, you look at everything, you look at art. The more you question embodiments, the more you go to the very heart which lies behind those embodiments, music, whatever. And I think all of these rivers, if you will, have come together where India, in my view, has played an oversized role, even its music, even its performative arts, in changing the spirit of America. And it has probably prepared America to deal with the future. And in what sense? Look at India. India has become a prisoner to wokeism. slowly over the last 70 years, more and more of all of that. So did America for 10 years. But America had the courage and strength to get rid of it. One may not like Donald Trump for whatever personal reasons, but he and the American system had the courage to do it. India has not had the courage to walk back on any of the excellence killing, quota driven things, which explains why Indian universities can't, even in Indian studies, even in Vedanta, cannot match the contribution that just a handful of people have made in the West. And that has a lot of lessons, both for America, to tell America that, look, things might be bad at this point because of AI and because of many other reasons, but there's also wonderful possibilities that await America and the rest of the world. And a lesson to India: hey, be strong, change, you need to change, be devoted to equality for everybody and not divide up humanity or the population into different communities on one point or the other.
Very well said. In fact, Phil Goldberg has talked about how, at the World's Parliament of Religion, when Swami Vivekananda came, pluralism was a very, not even heard of, a minority view, because each sect of Christianity and other Abrahamic traditions, if you want to call them that, they always claimed exclusive right to truth. And today nobody does. So, as Vivekananda said, that Vedanta is the only universal, as it were, quest for truth, because it's not incompatible with science. And in a sense, his words are coming true today. And I'm so glad that, you're underscoring the fact that what India stands for is not at all chauvinistic, sectarian, regional, linguistic, tied up with some exclusive notion, but it's universal. Sanatanism is a kind of universalism. That's one very important point you made. And you also talked about the oversized influence of Indian thought and Indian ideas. And even before the present, bloom or boom of yoga, you had the Boston Brahmins, Emerson, Thoreau, Whitman, all of them deeply influenced. And prior to that, as you said, at the foundational moment, you had these deists and rationalists who were very open-minded, and they were welcoming of all traditions from all parts of the world. So with those words, thank you so much, Subhashi. Thank you. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel and support our efforts to go a little deeper and not get entangled in polemics or politics. Till next time, namaste.
Thank you.